Okay, it's 1 o'clock. For those of you that are here, if you would like to turn on your cameras and your microphones, I'm totally okay with that. If you want to stay incognito, that's okay too. No pressure either way. Being a class facilitator in these times is a lot more difficult when you are speaking to gray boxes on the side of a screen rather than being in a classroom full of people. So not being able to see faces does make it a lot more difficult to facilitate classes. It's quite an interesting dynamic getting used to this over the last couple of months. And certainly that means that I appreciate you guys being here and signing in, even if that means that you're not turning on your cameras, that's totally okay. Couple of familiar names, which is good. It is 101, and in the interest of respecting your time, I'm not going to wait for the other people that had registered for this course to sign in before we get started. So, hi. For those of you that don't know me, there are some unfamiliar names here in the class right now. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sandra Kirkland. I'm the Manager of Professional Development for the Royal LePage Corporate Brokerage. I was a selling realtor for a decade before I moved into branch management with this brokerage, and now subsequently have moved into professional development because I love delivering content. So that's why I'm here. I wrote this course myself a couple of years ago, and I'm really thrilled to be able to continue to deliver it now. I think that one of my claims to fame is that I may have been the first person in Ontario, the first real estate registrant in Ontario back on June 1st, 2015 to legitimately use a digital signature on the agreement of purchase and sale. So I'm definitely qualified to deliver this course. I was working with buyers, they were friends of mine, and we had seen a property the day before. They were considering buying it, they wanted to sleep on it. And at 7:30 on that Saturday morning, they texted me and said, okay, let's go, let's put together an offer. So I, knowing that was June 1st and it was a Saturday, it was July 1st. It was either whichever of those days in 2015 was a Saturday. I put together an offer and I used DocuSign to have that offer signed. So if you know of anybody that did a digital signature on that day earlier than 7:30, I don't want to hear about it because I like having the claim to fame being that I was the first person in Ontario to legitimately use one on agreement of purchase and sale. Thank you to everybody who has just signed in the last minute or so. We're just getting started on running through digital signatures. So I've got a couple of slides. I tend to speak a little bit not scripted. I've got a couple of slides I want to go to just to explain what a digital signature is, the difference between a digital and electronic signature, why it's important to have both when you're using them to sign offers in the agreement of purchase and sale. Then we're going to go into a live demo using Authen Design. And as I get through my first couple of slides, I'll explain quite quickly why I'm using Authen Design for this demo. However, we don't necessarily recommend one platform over the other. The majority of people today use Authen Design for a variety of reasons, and I will go into why, but we'll also talk about a couple of other platforms in the event that Authen Design just simply doesn't work for you. That's fine. It's kind of like, you know, buying a car or buying a cell phone. Just because I use Apple everything, it doesn't mean that that is the best operating system or the best phone or the best computer for you, and that's totally okay. I'll also give you some tips on how to investigate some of the other platforms that are out there and how to practically apply a new platform into your business. Presuming that those of you that are here today are relatively new to electronic signatures and or relatively new to the business and learning how to figure out how to put this into your toolbox. So that's the goal of today. I promise you that you're not going to come out of today's session an expert and ready to jump into using digital signatures in your transactions that you may be doing this evening or tomorrow. That's not how adoption of a system like this generally works. It is a technological platform, and it does take a little bit of a learning curve and some practice, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through as well. Okay, so digital signatures have become a staple since 2018, and for the last 2 years continue to grow in instance over the course of transactions within Ontario. However, they're not new to the real estate industry, while they are still relatively newer within the last 5 years in Ontario. before Ontario finally made them legal to use on the agreement of purchase and sale, for almost a decade before that, they had already been widely used in other provinces across Canada, like British Columbia. Vancouver's been using them since, I think it was like 2008 or 2007, BC has been using them. Manitoba, even longer than that. And of course, in the States, they've been using them now for almost 20 years. So they are already a staple in real estate. If you have concerns over their legitimacy, given that they are still a relatively new technology for real estate in Ontario, don't be, because all of those bugs and legal concerns have been wiped out over the last couple of decades of usage around North America. There are many platforms available, and how you decide to incorporate one into your business is going to be personal to you. It's not up to me to be able to, sit here and dictate that you all need to use Authen Design because it's the best platform. It may be, it may not be. You may be looking for other features or have a more comfortable time working with a different flow and a different platform. So first, let's talk about how secure digital signatures are. I think by this point, we all are pretty comfortable with the fact that they are widely relied upon now in the real estate industry, and that is true. One of the reasons that makes them secure is that they all have geo-tracking in them, which means that if they needed to, oftentimes subpoenaed by a court of law, but some of them make that available to the users in the back-end platform, the geo-tracking will enable you to determine where your device in the world is located at the time that that device was used to place a signature on the document using that platform. So I've seen some platforms, for example, the digital signature platform that's built into Fall Tour, as an example, can identify where up to about a 15-meter radius you are located in the world. So for example, if your seller is signing in their corner office at a particular office building on Bay Street in Toronto, it would be able to pinpoint on a map exactly where they were within that building. Going a step further, the gigantic conglomerate platforms that are out there, like DocuSign, for example, can also determine how far up off ground level you are, meaning that not only could they determine that you were in the corner of this office building, but also that you were on the 30th floor, which is pretty mind-blowing. Of course, there's time and date tracking, meaning that they can pinpoint up to the millisecond each initial and marking and annotation that a signer has placed on that particular document, differentiating between different placements of initials, whether they did this one before this one and in what order. And of course, they can also recognize what time zone people are in and be able to account for those differences as well. Most digital signature platforms have the added security such as PIN codes or passwords, enabling you as the signing session creator to add that additional security for, say, for example, you've got a divorcing couple that at one point used to share an email address, or you've got an elderly client and you have some kind of concern that their children might be, hacking into their email and signing stuff on their behalf. Adding that extra password that you would then verbally tell them, knowing that nobody else can hear you share that password, can have that added level of comfort and security for anybody that is worried about that. Believe it or not, digital signatures are more secure and traceable than a traditional wet signature. And an example of that is, 20 years ago when we were all putting pen on a piece of paper, if that ever needed to be contested, if somebody ever said, that's not my signature on that document, really the only way that you could be certain as to whether or not that person had put their signature on that document was to take it to court, hire a handwriting expert to do an analysis of the person who is said to have signed it versus the actual signature itself. That, of course, also comes with its own opportunities for not being entirely foolproof. And while a digital signature also isn't 100% foolproof, it is more secure than a wet signature in that not only can I determine that my device, which is owned by me, on an internet connection in this house, which is password protected, my phone is password protected, my email is password protected, and I signed at a time that somebody could determine that I was actually home. Maybe there's security footage, my car's in the driveway, I've got an electronic video doorbell. The variety of digital ways that can actually prove without a shadow of a doubt that I am here right now with my device signing this document actually makes it more secure than a traditional pen on paper signature. And at this point, thankfully, I would venture to say that they are accepted by all entities. It's been about 2 years since I have heard of an instance across Ontario where a digital signature that was properly placed by any of the primary platforms was even questioned, let alone not accepted. When this first became legal, there were a number of mortgage brokers, lenders, and some lawyers that would refuse to accept digital signatures, which is now why you see some of those clauses, pre-written clauses on the agreement of purchase and sale, outlining that both parties acknowledge and accept that digital signatures could be used and digital forms of communication are accepted. So there are now no longer any instances, unless you're using one of those obscure digital signature platforms out there that maybe don't have you know, the trusted name that everybody has come to know. Again, we'll go through those, I think, in the next slide. You know, then there isn't really anybody at this point that is refusing to accept a document or a contract that has a digital signature on them, at least in terms of real estate contracts. So some of the most common platforms that people are using, especially in Ontario in the real estate industry, are the big conglomerate, the Coca-Cola of digital signature providers is DocuSign. They're quite expensive. I believe they're about $250 to $280 is $300 a year to use DocuSign, but it is by far the most advanced platform. They do digital signatures for a variety of industries, not just real estate. They work in stocks and financial trading, they work in insurance, they work in the medical field, and they've got different arms within DocuSign for that cater to different types of industries. And some of their more high risk and high privacy industries, they actually have you know, surprisingly increased security measures that are available within DocuSign, even going as far as retina scanning. But one of the most popular things that they have right now that you have to purchase to be able to upgrade is the ability to capture a selfie when somebody is signing a document. So if they're on their phone and they're going through a DocuSign process, it will ask them to take a picture of themselves to identify that that is actually the person that's attached to doing that signature. So kind of neat. Not terribly necessary in terms of an Ontario real estate transaction, but it is kind of neat anyway in the grand scheme of things. Authen Design, in my opinion, is the next most popular platform because Authen Design is free if you're a member of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. And if you do have to buy Authen Design, then it is extremely inexpensive. I think, is it $50 for a year, I think, or $90 for a year, $100 for a year. I don't remember exactly how much it is. The price seems to change regularly, but it is very inexpensive for unlimited usage, and it is also very secure. The other benefit to Authen Design, of course, is that CREA has recently moved its new web forms platform to Transaction Desk, and that is a platform that is owned by the same company that operates Authen Design. So your flow in creating your forms on CREA's web forms is a very, very similar flow to doing your digital signatures through the same platform. If you pay for Authen Design, or if you use Authen Design through your free Toronto Regional Real Estate Board membership, then the entire package is all packaged into one. Whereas with DocuSign or Repre or any of the other platforms, you have to do your forms on web forms, download them out, upload them into that other platform, which is a lot of extra steps and less efficient than using the digital signature platform that web forms already uses. Repre is another one. I'm not sure if you can still buy Repre as a standalone product because it was purchased by Next One, which delivers Fall Tour a number of years ago. So you may have to be a Fall Tour or Next One member, which is a brokerage purchase, not an individual realtor purchase. But if you can still buy Repre and you are looking for the creme de la creme of digital signature platforms, Repre is fantastic. It's what I used to use when I was selling. It is a transaction manager as well as a digital signature provider, and in my opinion, it is absolutely the best platform that's out there. It's very easy to use, but it is quite expensive. Last time I checked, it was about $25 a month, so significantly more expensive than any of the other platforms. The ones that are here on the right-hand side, ignore all of them. Dotloop is owned by Zillow, so we tend to stay away from any of those products that are owned by the big Z. DealTap, I believe, has died a slow, horrible death, finally, after many years of trying to break into the market and failing with each of their deliveries. EasySign and others, there's plenty of them out there. My suggestions to you is to do a Google search, digital signatures for real estate. Go through a couple of the top results in your Google search. look them up in terms of their Google reviews, do some Facebook searches with that name, go into any of the realtor Facebook groups if you're a member of things like the Real Estate Hacks or Real Estate Corner, and do a search for past posts about digital signatures. There's been tons of threads about the various platforms, and read what other realtors have to say about using those platforms as you choose. When you've narrowed it down to one or two, potentially you're trying to decide if you should spend the extra money on DocuSign or if you're okay just using the free version of Authen Design through your Treb account, then what I would suggest is that they both have free versions. And I would suggest that you take a couple of hours and schedule some time for you to really be able to focus on using those free accounts that are available for you through DocuSign or Authen Design. Using it is going to be the best way for you to determine whether or not you feel comfortable with it, whether there's a good flow, and whether it suits how you intend on using the software. Again, similar to buying a car, you would be remiss if you were just to walk through a parking lot and go, I like that one, and buy it without test driving it. And taking an opportunity to run through the free trials that the platforms have to offer for you is like test driving that before you commit. My other suggestion to you is that once you have decided that, one of these platforms is the best one for you, say that you've decided on Authen Design, when you buy it, don't just buy a month-to-month platform. Make sure that you commit to a full year in advance. The more that you have spent on it, hopefully the more serious you will be about committing to use it. Digital signatures, for those of you that struggle a little bit with, easy technology adoption, can be a little bit frustrating to get used to. In my experience in training people on how to use digital signatures, especially when we were back in a classroom environment before we moved into a webinar form like this, where I'm just doing a lot of talking to a lot of black boxes on the side of my screen and not able to see the understanding in your face to be able to adjust accordingly, I found that it took people on average 3 dummy signing sessions before they really started to go, oh, that's how it works. So after we go through today, I really want you to take some notes and do the best that you can to follow along. And when this is done, if you have time this afternoon, or at least at some point while it's still fresh in your memory, hopefully tomorrow at the latest, take an hour and a half and run through a dummy signing session. And if you can find the time to do that 3 times, then the process will start to become familiar for you, and you'll start to be a lot more comfortable with doing this on the fly the next time that you're about to sign an offer. I can tell you that there are ways to be 100% digital in your real estate business. One of the last sales that I did before I stopped selling to move into leadership in the industry was fascinating, because I was buyer number 2 out of 5 buyers that were going to be presenting offers in person at the seller's house. Back in, I believe it was mid 2016 or late 2016, I think it was. And I called the listing agent, who was a Remax agent. I didn't know who she was. I'd never worked with her before. I had no, prior relationship with her whatsoever. And I called her and I said, I'd really like to do this presentation digitally. Are you okay with working with me? I've never done this before. We may have to fumble through some things, but are you okay, working through this with me? And she said, wow, that would be really great. I've always wanted to move, even more digitally in my dealings. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in working on this with you, which was great, because we immediately developed this relationship and this desire to want to work together, which I think already helped me stand head and shoulders above the other competition. And that's still very much prevalent today, especially in multiple offers. While we're obviously not doing those physical in-person offer presentations as often as we used to due to the pandemic, there's still an opportunity to say, I really want to give this digitally a try, can you work with me on this? And it really does help you stand out among the competition. So long story short, I showed up at the house that evening in preparation of presenting my offer, and I had the signed offer, which had been signed on DocuSign by my buyers. And I had a copy on an iPad and I had a copy on a laptop. And as I was walking from my car to the door, because it was my turn to present, I emailed a copy of the offer to the listing agent, and she also had a laptop. So that meant that both of the sellers had a device. The listing agent had a device and I had a device, and we all had the same offer open on the devices at the same time. So we were all able to go through the offer in our own times, and then I left, and then the other buyers presented. Eventually I was called back in and they said, if you can change the closing date, the deal is yours. You've had the best offer except for the closing date. So I excused myself. I called my buyers. My buyers said, yeah, we're happy with the closing date. I said, great. I sat down at the kitchen table with the sellers and the listing agent, did the annotation of a counter offer onto the offer, sent it back over to my buyers via digital signature, who were waiting obviously on their phones. They signed it, and 7 minutes later, we had a firm, non-conditional, fully accepted offer without me having to rush back to the office and get photocopies and then fax it and send it over to everybody else. It was smooth and it was done, and it was a wonderful experience. So it is possible without wasting too much time, more time on that story. It is possible. By the way, if any of you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. I just realized that I didn't have the chat open, so I'm going to open up the chat and place that over here. So feel free to use the chat if you'd like to type, but I'm also fine if you just want to unmute yourself and jump in with any questions. I'll provide some time for questions at the end as well. Okay, so with that being said, let's move into a live demo of Authen Design. So for those of you that are Toronto Regional Real Estate Board members, and I'm going to take this moment to ask you guys to type in the chat if you have a moment, just to tell me if anybody that is present with us today is not a TREB member. That would help me just in some extra explanation that I want to do for anybody that is not a member of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. So if you could type if you're not, that would be great. For those of you that are TREB members, you'll have to take a moment to log in, so please allow me to do that. No no's in the chat, so I'm presuming that means you're all TREB members. That's good.
Sandra, just a heads up that it does, at least for me, show that the chat is disabled.
Oh, good to know.
So that could be why.
Chat should be enabled now. Ligia, can you send me a test message?
Yeah, it's working. It's showing up the field to type.
Okay, good. Sorry about that, guys. So again, if anybody is not a TREB member, please feel free to type no in that chat box. Sorry about that. And thanks, Ligia. Okay, so when you log into TREB, right from your immediate dashboard, as soon as you log in, you do have an opportunity to go directly to Authen Design from this screen. There is a button over here. Or if you come into search properties and you're already in here, you have a couple of options of being able to access Authen Design from this screen. It is over here on the links on the left-hand side. Web Forms and Authen Design is here. Excuse me. There is also a link to Authen Design and Web Forms inside each listing. So if you come over to each listing, you're able to look at a random listing. And there is also a link on the listing to Web Forms and Authen Design, which will pull some of the information from the listing into any new documents that you want to create that involve that property, or move right into a signing session that is attached to this particular property. So I'm not, by the way, as a heads up, giving a full training session on how to use Web Forms or how to use the additional benefits that Authen Design provides you in terms of digital transaction management. We do have a course on Web Forms that will dive into some of those things with a little bit greater detail. So I encourage you to keep an eye on our dynamic agent schedule for the next time that we offer Web Forms in the future. That will be beneficial for you. Further, the Toronto Real Estate Board and the Canadian Real Estate Association also have lots of live webinars that they deliver on a regular basis with Web Forms and Authen Design training. And the boards will also do occasional live seminars and sessions on that as well. So if we don't have a dynamic agent course coming up for you soon enough for you, then make sure that you're checking in with the boards as well for their training that they have available for you. So moving into Authen Design, when you click that link, it will single sign on, or SSO, that, as we call it, bring you into your specific Authen Design account. If this is the first time that you've accessed it, all 4 of these boxes will be empty. All 4 of these boxes will be empty. I can speak. You are able to track a variety of documents together into particular transactions. You are able to see separate documents that may or may not be attached to signing sessions. And you can also create and access your ARIA standard forms from this account as well. So anything that you need in terms of your forms and your signatures is all found within this dashboard that you're immediately taken to upon sign-in. Again, this is only a training session on digital signatures, so I'm not going to be talking about the rest of this that is involved in Authen Design, but I did want to show you that it was here for you to be able to explore. In my opinion, once you have a little bit more of a firm understanding of how to apply digital signatures and how to run through a signing session, the rest of what's available on this platform will be a little bit more easy for you to understand, and you'll feel a lot more confident about clicking around in the platform to see how particular things work. It's really difficult, if even at all possible, for you to break anything on this or to send any messages to people that may or may not want to see those messages, or mistakenly send something to a client. It's really difficult to be able to do that. So feel free to just spend some time clicking around on here and seeing what everything is. If you click the 3 lines up here, it does expand over your side menu so you can actually see what each of the icons are called. But again, the more comfortable you get with the platform, the more you may want to maximize your view by just understanding what these icons are on their own. Because today all we're doing is a signing session, I'm going to go right over here to Authen Design, which takes me right into the specific signing sessions that I have in my account. I've deleted them all because in the last couple of years, they've all been tests. And I've obviously downloaded all of the signing sessions that pertain to my business before I stop selling. So I keep this nice and clean so that it's easy for everybody to look at and not terribly distracting. To start a simple new signing session that isn't attached to a client or a transaction or anything else that I've got going on, there's a button up here that says add, and I'm just going to click on add, which is going to start a new signing session. Now, I want you guys to really keep in mind that a signing session is very similar to the concept of inviting your clients to meet you at your office with the purposes of going over documents and then signing them. So for the purposes of this demo, let's imagine that we've got a husband and a wife, say Barbara and Oliver Rose are 2 names that I like to use regularly as demo people. Say that they're clients of yours, you've shown them a bunch of houses, they've called you and they've said, Sandra, we're ready to put in an offer on that place on Fremont. And you'll go, okay, great. Why don't you come into my office at 6 o'clock? We'll sit down in one of the client rooms. We'll go through the 5 documents that we need you to sign, and then we'll have you guys create your signatures, give you guys a copy to take home with you, and we'll be ready to go. And they say, great. So now you're preparing to meet them in your office for 6 o'clock to do the signing. So because now we have created a standalone appointment with a specific purpose to sign multiple documents, we need to really be able to identify that individual appointment or that individual signing session. And to do that, we're going to give the signing session a name that will allow us to be able to go back to the signing session at any time in the future and be able to find it easily. So for example, in this instance, our buyers are going to be signing an offer for 409 Fremont Drive. So let's call it exactly what I've got here, 409 Fremont Drive, offer number 1. And the reason why we're going to call it offer number 1 is because Bill 55, which is a law that we have to abide by, a part of the Real Estate Business and Brokers Act, requires us to keep a copy of every version of every offer that we create. So if we, for example, are the only offer that's coming in on 409 Fremont, we may be expecting to negotiate back and forth with the sellers through a couple of counteroffers. So we may create this offer for a certain amount of money, send it over to the seller. The seller may decide that they want to counter back at a higher price. They'll change the offer. They'll send that offer back to us. And we may go ahead and change that offer again and counter it back to the sellers a 3rd time. So over the course of that negotiation, there's 2 versions of offers now that we have to keep. Our original one that we first signed and sent to the sellers, which in this case is offer number 1. And when the sellers bring it back to us and then we've changed it and sent it back again, that would be offer number 2. So just in terms of your organization, and if Rico were to ever come knocking and say, I want to see all of the versions of this particular offer that you submitted, it's very easy for you with this organizational style for you to be able to identify which one is which and recall them with ease. However, if you want to rename that something else that works better in your organizational mind, feel free to do so. This is just a suggestion. If we were working with transactions within Authen Design, we might be able to name them here or add a new one here. In this case, because it's just a demo and we're working on a standalone signing session, I'm just going to leave the transaction blank with our title here. And yes, it's a new signing. When I've gotten to this point, I'm going to click save, and that's going to move us into the next step. So we're going to be doing some further setup of our signing session in this screen. The first thing that we're going to be doing is determining in what order people are going to be signing. Then we're going to determine who is going to be signing. Then we're going to determine what documents need to be signed. And then the last item that we do before we send this out to the clients is to indicate where on each of those documents each signature and initial needs to go. That will also be the place that we do any changes or annotations to a document. For example, if you're changing a price or the irrevocability, we do that in step 4. So let's go through these step by step. We've already entered our signing name, and it's going to ask us, as indicated by red, meaning that it's mandatory, it's going to ask us whether we want to sign in line or simul-sign. By the way, guys, each of these steps is pretty much standard for all of the digital signature platforms that are available out there. So if you're still unsure if you're going to be using Authen Design or DocuSign, they might have slightly different terminology and a slightly different order, but the concept of deciding when people are going to be signing, who they're signing, what, and where they're going to be signing, it's all relatively the same, and these are how these platforms work. So even if you decide to use DocuSign, this demo will still be valuable for you in a different platform. So the difference between the participant order of sign in line versus simul-sign is, as they've stated here, the sign in line means that they're going to be signing in an order that you choose. This could be especially valuable, for example, where a husband is, or sorry, maybe a father is helping a son purchase a property. And that means that both the father and the son are going to be going on title. Generally speaking, the father is going to want that authority of being able to look over the documents, make sure that everything is good, then he signs it before the papers get passed off to his son to add his signatures on it as well. In some cases, it wouldn't matter. If you've got a husband and wife who are equally on title, for example, you may want to just say anybody can sign it whenever you get a chance to open the email that's going to be sent. So that's the difference between these two things. It does default to sign in line, so we're going to go ahead and leave it at that. I'm not going to go into advanced options. Again, when you get comfortable with the platform, you're going to be able to go into advanced options at your leisure and click around and see how that works for you. So we've chosen sign in line. Next, I'm going to choose step 2, which is the participants. So when I click on step 2, it opens up this new pop-up box and it invites me to add participants. If this isn't the first time that I've done a signing session with these people, I may be able to add them from my contacts. Let's see if I've got anybody in here. I do have Barbara and Oliver in here, so I'm going to go ahead and add Barbara and Oliver Rose. And I'm going to add them as a remote signer. So let's talk about the differences between the types of signers they are. Remote signer means that they are not physically present with me. They're not going to be using my device. They're somewhere else and they're going to be on their own device, their phone or their computer, and they're going to be accessing by logging into their email. If they were physically present with me, for example, if they were coming to my office or we were meeting at the house or at their house or at a Starbucks or wherever to sign these documents, I may want to prepare everything on my computer. And instead of having them have to log into their email on my computer or have to use their smaller, maybe outdated device, well, I have this great big beautiful laptop in front of me. If I type them in as an in-person signer, it will give me the opportunity to say, to set it up on my computer and then turn my computer to them for them to be able to just access the signing session through my computer, which is also perfectly legitimate and also very secure. To add somebody as a reviewer, this would mean that they have to give their stamp of approval on the documents, but they're not actually placing anything permanent on the document. So consider, again, if we were to equate this to a real life in-person signing session, consider that, again, going back to that father and son purchasing property, say the father absolutely wasn't going to be on title at all. It's only going in the son's name. So the son is the only one signing the agreement of purchase and sale. But because the father is, giving the deposit or down payment or really wants to make sure that his son is making the right decisions, dad wants to look over the agreements before the son signs them, but dad's not signing. We're going to send dad these copies as a reviewer, meaning that he's going to be first in line and will have to sign off to accept the documents without actually putting his signature on the documents before the signing session can complete and all the signatures get placed on the document. Conversely, the CC only option over here doesn't ask anybody for approval or to acknowledge that they've seen the documents. It just copies them on the final version of that document. So a place where you may want to use the CC option, for example, one of the great places I use this, which I found incredibly efficient and really felt like a bit of a fist pumping celebration, was when I knew that I was going to be very busy out with a buyer on a Saturday afternoon, showing them 6 back-to-back properties, and I really wanted to focus on making sure that I was there for my buyers and focus solely on them. But I had a condition on another transaction that was going to be expiring at 5 that I still had not had the notice of fulfillment signed for yet. My clients were, I forget what they were waiting for. I think they were waiting to hear back from a contractor on a quote for something, and they wanted to know what the quote was before they waived the inspection clause. I think that was it. So what I did was, in advance of meeting my current buyers to go out and do the 6 showings, I set up the signing session for the notice of fulfillment, anticipating that those buyers were probably going to just be sending the notice of fulfillment. I set up the notice of fulfillment, set up the signing session, sent it off to my other buyers. I called them and I said, I've just sent you guys a notice of fulfillment. Don't sign it until you're ready to sign it. And then as soon as you signed it, we'll be done, we'll be firm, we'll be good to go. And they said, okay, great. So I set up the listing agent of that other property as a CC only on the signing session. And what that meant was, about 90 minutes before that condition was due to expire, my buyers were okay to sign the notice of fulfillment. They both opened their email, they went through the signing session, they placed their signatures, and when they were done and the signing session was complete, the listing agent automatically got a copy of that final version with all of their signatures on it. I wear an Apple Watch that notifies me when I get email, and while I was with my buyers, my email buzzed. I checked my email. Authen Design notified me that that signing session had been completed, and I knew that the listing agent had received the final version of that notice of fulfillment. Nothing for me to do but celebrate a firm deal quietly while I went back to focus on my buyers. In any other world, if I hadn't set that up in advance, I probably would have had to make my current buyers wait for a few minutes while I worked on my phone or pulled out a laptop or did whatever I needed to do in order to make that notice of fulfillment come in on time. So definitely a great way to be able to use that CC only option. There's a ton of other ways you could use it. Maybe you want to CC your deals admin team on the final version of whatever that may be. Maybe your broker or your mentor, or if you're shadowing somebody wants to have a look at something before you send it over. That's a great way to use that as well. Lots of options there for that CC only. So these are the types of things that you can use. Now, I spent a lot of time on that, so I'm going to just leave Barbara and Oliver as a remote signer, and then we'll add them to the agreement. Now, you can see here that because back in step 1, I left them as sign in line, which means I'm choosing an order that these people are going to be signing in. Back here in step 2, now that I've added Barbara and Oliver, I'm actually able to click and drag and change the order that I want them to sign in. So maybe I want Oliver to sign first, or maybe I want Barbara to sign first. There's no limit to the amount of signers you can add into a signing session. So if you've got 7 kids that are all responsible for signing off on the estate of the deceased parent, then you can add all 7 of them here. There's absolutely, there's nothing stopping you from adding as many people as you want here. If they're not already in your contacts, you would click add participants and then click add a new participant. And you've got a contact card here that you would fill out with those same options: remote, in-person, review, or CC. First name, last name, email address are the only things that are mandatory. Everything else is optional for you to be able to put. This would also be where you want to customize signature for longer names, and where, once I move the camera icons out of the way here, where you would also customize the invitation email subject and text that go out to your clients. You can also do that here as well. If you're adding more than one person that aren't in your contacts, you would finish this one, then add another. This is also where you would add your private PIN number as well. So if I wanted to add in 9999 as a password for that person to enter before they access the documents, this would be where I would do that. Okay, so now that we've added Oliver and Barbara in a sign-in line situation, the next thing that we have to do is determine what documents they're going to be signing. So clicking on step 3 documents gives me a new pop-up window. I would venture to guess that probably the only thing that you're going to be using in this point is either going to be select from forms, which takes you over to web forms and allows you to choose any of the TREB or ARIA or any of the other, like if you're using a regional, on regional, the matrix forms, any of those types of forms are all available for you here. Or you may want to upload a file. And this is what I'm going to do for the purposes of this training session, is upload a file. So say, for example, you have received an offer, this is your listing now, and you've received an offer to purchase your listing, and you want to bring that in to create a counter offer. So the buyer agent has emailed you the offer and said, hey, please find attached our offer for 409 Fremont Drive. Perfect, it's attached. There's a PDF in my email. I'm going to download the PDF out of my email, save it to my computer, and when I get to this point in creating the signing session for my sellers to annotate and counteroffer that offer, I'm going to choose the upload a file option. So again, I've saved that PDF out of my email, and I've saved it to my computer. So I've pre-created this specifically for this demo. I keep saying 409 Fremont, and the address is actually 119 Fremont, but it doesn't matter. I've already created this place on my computer for the purposes of this demo where I have an offer saved to my desktop. So let's say, for example, that this is the offer that the realtor sent me. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to upload it to this particular signing session. Again, no limit to the number of documents that you are able to upload into this signing session. So again, if you're a buyer if you're a buyer's agent working with buyers and you need that buyer representation agreement, then you need the confirmation of cooperation, then you need the agreement of purchase and sale, then maybe you've got schedules B, C, and D, maybe you've got, 801 if you use that. Any of the documents that you want to attach to this particular signing session, you can upload them all here. And similarly to the way that we did with participants, if you want to change the order of how those documents appear, I'll just show you that quickly by adding a secondary document here. Then you are able to change the order to make sure that they're signing in whatever order you want them to. So you obviously want them to sign the buyer rep first, then the confirmation, then the agreement. You can make sure that that order is conducive to how you want it. If you've added something or a person that you don't actually want in the signing session, you've added something by mistake, it's really easy to delete one just by hitting that X and confirming that you want to delete it. And then you're left with whatever you didn't delete, okay? Again, if you want to start with a form from scratch, going back into documents and choosing select from forms, again, will take a moment because my upload speed is really slow and I'm on Zoom. And it gives you an opportunity for you to come into individual forms, choose from any of the Ontario boards, and go into any of the ARIA forms, and then you can choose the Agreement 100 if that's what you want, and you can select any of these forms to fill out on the fly here. Again, take our web forms course if you need some assistance in this regard, but that would be how you would create a blank form in your signing session as well. If you create a blank form in your signing session, by the way, you do have an opportunity to fill out that form before it gets added into the signing session. Again, I encourage you to take some time to go through those steps so that you can see how that works from that perspective. Now that we've added the people, we've indicated how and when those people are going to be signing, and we've added documents. Again, the last step that we need to do is to put the pen in their hands and indicate where on those documents we need them to sign. So we click on step 4. this will load the entire document that we have uploaded here into this view. So I can really take my time in this view and really make sure that what I'm doing here is absolutely correct. It's really important to note that after the signing session has completed, if you find that you're missing some initials or signatures on the document after the signing session has completed, it's because the only reason why it could be is because you've missed adding a signature block or an initial block in this step. So it's really important that you take your time. If this is one of the first times that you've done it and you're doing it in a live situation, make sure that you schedule yourself the time to not feel rushed as you're going through this process, because it is really easy to forget an initial bubble or forget a signature bubble, which if you get really frustrated, may force you to start again from the beginning, or at the very least will make you come back into this situation, bring this document back in after it's already been signed once, and create an entirely new signing session to add in what you had forgotten in the first step. So really make sure that you're taking your time to do this part properly. So again, as you can see, the entire agreement is here. This isn't an active agreement for any reason. You know, obviously the dates are all wrong and there's a whole bunch of stuff that are missing here, but it's got the meat of what we need in order to show you how to do some certain things. So I'm just going to move some windows around here so that I can maximize my own view. Okay, so this is what is most important when looking at this screen. Again, this is a basic entry level to running digital signatures through Authen Design. I'm not going through any of the tips and tricks or advanced processes here. But again, once you've got this simple part down, the rest of it will come really easy to you. Most important to note is up here, who the active selected signers are. And the second most important thing to note are these two submenus that are underneath. Clicking on each of these gives me a different menu for both of them. And it's really important to have an understanding of the difference between these two things. Right now, our signers available are Barbara Rose. And if I click on this, I can change to Oliver Rose. Whoever name is up here in this portion of this window is who controls the pen or who is going to be completing the task that I am about to set out for them. So just in its simplicity, just putting an initial at the bottom of page 1 or of any of the pages. I'm going to start with Barbara. And when I click this drag and drop menu, this is me putting the pen into Barbara's hands. The only 3 things that you're ever going to use with any kind of regularity in this system are this red and yellow sign here box, this red and yellow initial here box, and this icon over here, which I have to tell you, for the longest time, I literally thought was a light bulb on a table. I guess I'm too young to remember the rubber date stamp, although I'm not, because once somebody pointed out that it's actually a rubber date stamp, you know, the penny dropped, the light bulb fell off the table that I thought it was on, and it became clear to me that this obviously is a rubber date stamp and not a light bulb on a table. Obviously, this will insert in a date box for wherever it is that you want that to exist on behalf of Barbara Rose. So let's show you what this does. In this case, we want the difference between the green one and the red one is that the red one is mandatory. If we place this with Barbara's name selected, Barbara won't be able to finish her signing session until she has placed her initial in this box. It's mandatory, it's a requirement. Nothing can happen until this step is completed. That's why we're using this instead of the optional box, because in no case are you going to want to make an initial optional for Barbara to maybe place it there if she wants. If you find yourself not knowing if somebody is going to be initialing a change or someplace that you've put in the document, then you need to stop doing the digital signature altogether and revert back to having a conversation with your client. Digital signatures are best used after you've already gotten on the same page with your clients and you know exactly what they intend to do. So with Barbara selected, I'm going to take the initial here box and I'm going to drop it right here in the bubble where we want Barbara to place her initial. I've put it over on that half of the bubble because Oliver is our other buyer. So I need to switch over to Oliver and place another initial box for Oliver. Now I've placed their 2 initials side by side and the system will be very clear for Barbara that she needs to sign in this box and Oliver needs to sign in this box. There's no way for Barbara to accidentally sign here. It's very clear that the system will guide her through, place your initial here, place your initial here, don't place your initial here. She can't move them. She can't accidentally sign Oliver's. It's very foolproof and really great that way. So moving down the document, let's move to the signature document, because we also want to take a look here at this sign here box. So on this screen, obviously, we want Barbara to place her full signature, not just her initial. And this is the full signature box versus this being the initial box. So if we take this mandatory signature box and put it over, oh, we've got Oliver selected. See, it makes it nice and easy for me to see who this belongs to. Then that's going to go there, and that's going to be where Oliver is going to sign. A couple of tips is that it's really important to note that the sign here icon cannot go off the page. So if you try and place this over top of two pages, like if I wanted Oliver to sign here, for example, it's not going to let me, it's going to keep moving it up. So I have to make sure that the whole thing fits on the page. In order to do that, I'll just delete that whole thing and try again. In order to do that, in order to place that here without having it bump all the time, I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. So I can click and drag these little green buttons here and make the signing box a little bit smaller, and now it will fit here. There's a couple of other things I can do. Again, advanced tips and tricks. Once I've placed that, there's a little gear icon here, and if I click that, it gives me a whole bunch of extra options. I can delete it, I can copy it, I can change the signer, I can do a whole bunch of other stuff here. I like add a date stamp. So if I add a date stamp, it's attached to Oliver Rose's signature, and it will automatically enter the date that Oliver completed his signing session. So say, for example, we send this over to Oliver and Barbara tonight. Barbara signs tonight really quickly, no problem. It automatically enters in, what's today, August 12th. It automatically enters August 12th into Barbara's signing session, but Oliver doesn't look at it until tomorrow. In fact, even more, let's say he looked at it tonight, but he decided that he wanted to sleep on it and he didn't complete his signing until tomorrow morning, then that date will automatically show tomorrow morning as the final date that he signed. So it's important to remember that. There's another way that I can add the date, which of course is flipping back to Barbara, because we need her to sign here as well. So we're going to put Barbara's signature here. We're going to delete Oliver's signature here because that's not where he's supposed to sign. You can see that it also deleted the timestamp that was attached to that signature. And if I click on Barbara, I can manually place the date here like this if I want to, or I'm going to delete that. Let's say that we need Barbara to also add a timestamp of when she placed the signature. So if I go and click auto date, auto time, then I could put this in the confirmation of acceptance field if I wanted to, and I knew that Barbara was going to be the last person to touch the offer. That's where I would put the timestamp. And then I would, of course, add another one, add a date stamp here, and then boom, that confirmation is all done. And then I would add one more signature of Barbara there. So then that completes her signing, including a time and a date that she completed that to that time. And this would be acceptable, of course, in terms of contract law and real estate. Sorry, I'm just waiting for an important email. So I was just glancing at my inbox. It's really distracting and terribly rude to you guys. So I'm going to put my phone over here. Okay, so that is the gist of placing initials and signatures. I also wanted to point out this T here. That creates a text box that Barbara can fill in on her own. There's very few instances where you would probably use something like this. The only one that I can think of is you've got a listing, a buyer has approached you and said that they want to use you to put in an offer on a customer service representation. You discuss terms. They say, you know, we want this condition, this closing date, this title search date, draw up the offer for me, but leave the price blank. I'll fill in the price when you send me over the offer and I sign it. That way I can keep my price private from you in the event that you've got another buyer or other buyers come to the table. Okay, great, no problem. You fill out all that offer. If I go back up here, let's see if I put a price here. Let's say that there was no price here. Barbara Rose, I'm going to take this text box and I'm going to drop it right in here. I can't type in here anywhere. I can move it around and do whatever I want with it, but Barbara can type in here. That would be the only case where you would think, where I can think of that you would want your client to be able to free type on the offer. Typically as realtors, obviously it is our job to make all of the changes to the contract on their behalf. And then once we've made all of those changes, then we hand them the pen and say initial here, sign here, sign here. So instead of asking them to make these changes, let's say that we now need to go ahead and make an annotation as if this were a counteroffer. So we've got this price at $900,000. Let's say that at the last minute we want to change it, or we're doing a counteroffer. From the drag and drop menu, we're going to go underneath to the markup menu. If you remember, I said that this was the second most important sub menu that you're going to be using when doing a signing session. So leaving the drag and drop menu, I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to open up the markup. This now is placing the pen in my hand as the realtor. So this allows me to, have, again, imagine that you're doing an in-person signing session where your clients have come to the office and you're dealing with a stack of paper with all of these documents on it. We're discussing, what price do you want to offer? Oh, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, let's do this. Okay, we've decided that we're not going to offer 900, even though you've just printed it out. We're going to offer 920. In real life, you would grab a pen, you would cross out the 900, you would write in 950, and then you would give your buyers the offer, and then they would initial beside the new price that you had written in. So how do we do that here on this platform? Choosing this markup menu gives us a variety of options here, including a straight line, a highlighter, a box, a circle, free pen, and a text box. Again, the only things that you're going to use with any kind of regularity in Authen Design is the straight line, which will cross out old information, and the text box, which will draw in new information. Again, draw freehand, like that allows us to do this in the document if we want. We don't really want to do that. We want to be able to strike out with a nice, clean, straight line the information that we don't want. So that's the price. And we do have to do both the numeric and the written separately, like we would with a pen on paper. It's not automated for us. We have to do it separately. So I've struck out that information. It does automatically default to a red line, which you can choose if you want, but if you click on it, you have that gear and you can change the color to black or to any of the other colors that they offer if you prefer. So you can leave it red if you want to, or you can change it black if that's more aesthetically pleasing for you. Now that we've crossed out the 900, we need to replace it with our new price. And our new price is going to be with a text box. I'm going to add a text box here, and I'm going to type in 950,000 because that's the new price that we want to offer in place of 900. Once I've placed this, I can click and drag and move it wherever I want on the document. So I can make sure it's exactly where I want it to go by moving it to wherever I think it needs to be on the document. And of course, I'm going to do the same over the written price. Okay, and then once I've done that, I'm going to move that exactly where I want it to be. Okay, I'm happy with this. By the way, you can also change the font. So I've got a couple of different options there for font. I can also make that smaller so that it more matches the size of what was there previously. If I wanted, I can do whatever I need to with this, change the color, make it bold, whatever it is that I want to do. That looks like it matches pretty good. So I'm going to leave it like that, italicize it if I want, make it kind of nifty. Okay, so now that I've changed the price, the last thing that I need to do, of course, is get Barbara and Oliver to place their initials that they acknowledge that change in the offer. So I go back up to the drag and drop menu, which again places the pen into their hands. With Barbara selected, I'm going to place an initial here, and I'm going to place an initial here. Then I'm going to switch to Oliver and place the initials beside his wife's. Now, when they get the signing session, they're going to be pointed out that this change has been made by me, and then they're going to be asked to initial in the places that I've asked them to initial. Okay, so of course you would do that the same here for the irrevocability. You know, again, we'd go back up to the markup. If it's a counteroffer, we need to change the irrevocability. So may want to change, may want to change the date here too. And then of course we would be adding in the new. Obviously this is supposed to be irrevocable by the buyer, but I'm sure you guys are following what I'm laying down here just to show you how these changes get made. Oh, that was the year that I was changing. Don't want to do that. We would change that date. So anyway, I think you guys are getting the gist of this. Add another couple of initials over here. And boom, Bob's your uncle. Okay, so we would add the initials, of course, to the bubble at the bottom of each of these pages. Now, if we wanted to delete or add a clause or a condition, we can also do that here. So again, going back over to the markup, we would get that straight line. We're going to add in a line. It's always best practices, by the way, guys, to make sure that you are crossing out each individual text line on its own, and not just kind of doing one of these. Like, we don't want to do one line through multiple lines. We do want to do one line for each line of the text, just to be ultimately clear with what it is that we want to strike out. So we would do that manually. It can take a little bit of time, but not everything is swifter when we're using advanced technology. And then, of course, again, going over and adding the initials of our two parties to acknowledge that they're okay with crossing that out. Okay, so it is effectively that easy. Again, there are a number of other things that you may or may not want to do from these menus. You can create custom layouts that will automatically place initial bubbles in the places that you set them out to be. There's a variety of extra options that you can have here in this menu. Again, once you get comfortable with this process, feel free to click around and see all of the extra options that are available to you in this platform. But those are the basics that will get you through doing a standard signing session and a standard counteroffer. When you're done, and again, please take your time going over this again, going, yes, initials, initials, changes, initials, didn't miss anything, great, it's all good. When you're ready to go, we're gonna hit next. And next is going to give us one last option to customize the emails that the clients are going to get before we finalize setting up this signing session. So if we wanted to customize the invitation emails, we would click on this, and it gives us the option to customize the invitation to each individual person. So we could say, Barbara is a really good friend of ours, so we can be a little bit more casual with her, and we can say, offer for Fremont, yay! Wine soon when this gets accepted. But Oliver, we don't really get along very well with. He's kind of a bit of a stick in the mud. We need to be a little bit more professional with him. We don't know him very well. So we'll say offer for Fremont, and then we'll say, hello, Oliver. Attached is your signing session for your offer on Fremont, blah, blah, blah. And then you can type in whatever you want. And then these will be the emails that go to those individual people. When we're ready and we're done and we're ready to send this out, we hit save and away it goes. Send invitations, and it's gone. The Authen Design invitations were successfully sent. The one thing that I didn't set up in advance on this computer was either of those two email addresses that go to those clients. So I'm not going to be able to show you how they appear from a client's perspective, but I strongly encourage that you guys do this and set yourself up with your own email addresses as your client. That way you can experience the process from the client's perspective and be better able to assist them if they call you and go, I don't know how this works. You have that familiarity to be able to walk them through how to do that. Now, going back to my dashboard, I am able now to, oh, it's not showing from here. I am able to come back over to the digital signings by clicking the pen over on this side. And I can see all of the signing sessions that I have ever completed in the history of ever. Authen Design will never delete a signing session, even if it was never finalized. I'm able to see all of those here, and I'm able to look at the status of them. So this particular one, which is the one that we just did, as you can see when it was last modified and when it was created. And I can also see that the status of it is in progress. And this lightning rod here means that the signing session has been activated. It's been completed. It's been sent out to the people that need to sign it. And we're waiting for those people to log in and sign it. I can also click on it and get an idea of how far along everybody is in this signing session. So if you give me a quick moment, I will log into one of these emails and I'll download the email. Which one did I get first? I know I said that they were sign in line and simul-sign. Take a moment to rest my voice. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to type away in the chat. Neither of them are coming up in my email. So I'll check my other email platform just to see. Now it's going to make me look like a liar because neither of them are showing up in my email. Isn't that wonderful? One more time. We said they were signed in line, so Barbara should get hers first. I'm checking my email address. Oh, here it goes. No, that was somebody leaving the webinar. No problem. Oh, here it is. Okay, so let me just sign this quickly so that you guys can see what this dashboard does as the signing session progresses. Must be my internet today. Bringing in separate schedules. Yeah, so Carol, there are a number of schedules that are available to you. Because Authen Design is attached to web forms, it's really easy to be able to, as we said in the signing session, add from forms instead of adding in from a file upload. And if we were to go to add from forms, then we would be able to navigate and find a blank schedule and then add that to the agreement or to the signing session and then type in whatever we wanted. Or if you have pre-prepared them, then you would simply upload from file after downloading them out of web forms the same way that we did in this process. I'll jump back to that in a sec as soon as I finish the signing session for Barbara Rose. It is definitely my internet connection. I'm sorry about this, guys. This will just take me a brief moment. Bear with me. I'll change to a more reliable internet channel. And this actually may not work. Given my poor internet connection, I may skip this step in this webinar altogether. Oh, here we go. It's working. Great. Progress, progress. 2 more. 1 more. Oh my. I've never had these problems with Authen Design today. My internet is extremely slow. I'm surprised this webinar is still going. Okay, so while that's happening, let me bump back to, I'll do a whole new signing session. We'll just do this quickly. So when we're setting up a signing session at the beginning, if you have already created your additional schedules or you've downloaded them out of the listing, so again, you're representing a buyer, you've downloaded the Schedule B that the listing had attached in Stratus, then you would upload those by going into, of course, it's going to force me to add a participant first. So we would go over to step 3 into documents, we would choose upload a file. And if we had downloaded that schedule out of Stratus, then presumably we've saved it to our downloads folder or maybe to our desktop, and then we would upload that extra schedule in this way. It does become a part of the document, but it keeps files separately. So if we're uploading, again, if I'm uploading these 3 offers, it's not going to blend all 3 documents into one document. It's going to keep all 3 documents separately, even though it presents them all as one file. So again, consider if this were in person and we had our confirmation of cooperation, then we had our agreement, and say that we hadn't stapled them together, but everything was in order. We're still able to, say that the confirmation is these 2 pages and the buyer rep is these 3 pages and the agreement is these 7 pages, and we're able to parse out the different documents. So there's no way to actually add a Schedule B as a permanent page within the offer. It would still stay a separate schedule, but that would be how you would upload an extra schedule. If you were creating a schedule from scratch, what you may want to do in that case is from this screen in Add Documents, you would then select from Forms. And I think, as soon as this loads, we are able to even search for schedule, and it might. Oh, my internet is an embarrassment today. My apologies, everyone. We're able to scroll through here and go down to the Toronto forums instead of the Durham forums. Look for schedule. Which one is the standard schedule? The 105. So we would be able to load this particular schedule, and we would be able to add that. Oh, I didn't select it. Oh. Still trying to sign this document on my phone while this is loading. Okay, that's done. Okay, so I've now been able to find the Toronto 105. I don't know why it's not letting me add this. Strange. That seems to be a glitch in Authen Design. This whole webinar is just full of disasters this afternoon, isn't it, guys? This would be, generally speaking, you would probably see a checkbox here, and you would be able to, might be my internet connection, to be honest. You'd be able to select that and then add it to the document. For some reason, it's not allowing me to select that. But selecting from forms would be how you would add a blank schedule. Uploading a file would be how you would add a schedule that you've downloaded out of the listing. So I trust that helps. Again, make sure that you go through this on your own. It will become apparent to you once you fumble your way through this the first couple of times. So now that I've signed on behalf of Barbara Rose, what I do want to do is go back to that signing session. Look at that. It created the signing session, but it didn't, I didn't save it. I just deleted out of it, and it saved the signing, that partially written signing schedule signing session that I had just created. Okay, so back to the original signing session. It still says that it's in progress, but if I click on it, I'm going to be able to see now that Barbara has authenticated her signing session and she has completed signing, as you can see by the checkered flags indicating that she's completed. And we're still waiting for Oliver to authenticate and to sign. If I were now to go into this email address, by the way, Oliver hadn't received his email yet at all until Barbara had completed her signing session, because we had chosen sign in line and we had selected Barbara to sign first. So now that Barbara has completed her signing session, I could go back into my email, and if you're able to see here where it came from, me as the realtor, let's see if I can just open up my camera here so I can make sure that I'm showing you the right thing. That's not what I wanted to do. I don't know where my cameras went. Oh, my cameras have disappeared. Well, hopefully you can see that. But me now as a listing agent, I have received a message indicating that Barbara has completed her signing session. So now Authen Design is working to send an email to Oliver asking him to complete his signing session, and that'll arrive in my email in the next few minutes. So then Oliver would go ahead, of course, and complete his signing session. Then we would see checkered flags under both sides of authenticated and both sides of completed signing. And then down here, it's going to give us a history of all of the various versions of that document. So I'll have the original document that had no annotations on it, which is this one here. With just just the changes that I had made before any signatures went on it. So you can see that my change here and here. And then on this next revision, I'm able to take a look here, and we're able to see that this is the one that Barbara has signed. It doesn't have Oliver's signature here yet because Oliver hasn't signed yet, but this is the revision that I have after Barbara completed her signing session. So I can scroll down to the signature page. There's Barbara's signature. We'd made her sign the confirmation of acceptance. So there's the time that she'd signed it, the date that she'd signed it, and of course there's her signature there again. By the way, Barbara and Oliver both have complete control over how their signature appears. They can choose a variety of fonts here. They can choose to write themselves if they want to trace their signature with their finger on their phone or on their trackpad. They have full control over how their signatures and their initials appear, and that's really important. Of course, when Oliver has finished signing, I'll have a third document that will be available here in this list. which will show both Oliver and Barbara's signatures. And once Oliver has completed, the other step that occurs is that Oliver and Barbara are both sent an email immediately with a final version of that document with both of their signatures on that document. So it saves you that extra step of having to make sure that they have their copy as well. I can also take a look into the history and see exactly what happened over the entire process of this signing session and when each of those steps occurred. And this is in the time zone that your computer is in. So if you happen to be on vacation in BC, it will show that you did this at 1:37 in the afternoon BC time, because that's where you were when you completed that task. So again, when you're completed, of course, the last thing that you need to do once you have your completed document, it will be emailed to you, notifying you from Authen Design that your signing session has been complete. Here's your final version of your document. If you've chosen anybody as a CC, they'll also receive that version of that document right away. And at any time, you'll be able to come back into Authen Design, open it up here. And once you open it by clicking on it here, it gives you the option to view it as a PDF and be able to download it to your computer. And then you could send it out to the other realtor if it's a counteroffer that you need to resubmit, or email it to your deals admin, or whatever you need done with that document. Viewing it as a PDF, of course, gives you the option to be able to save it as a PDF on your computer. So just to go through those steps again, once I download it, it's going to download it to my desktop because that's where I'm choosing to save it. And then once I've done that, I can minimize my window, and you'll be able to see now that I've got that offer and it's signed by Barbara. Oliver hadn't completed his yet. His initials are still there waiting for them to be signed. But the entire document is here, and you can see it's clear. It's in great condition, very easy to read. And that's it. That basically concludes our demo. Again, I do want to provide any opportunity that you guys may have for questions. If you've got anything that you'd like to ask, let me just reload up my chat here. Or feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd prefer, whatever you like, that's fine. You're more than welcome to do so. Opening up the chat. And if you don't have any questions that you'd like to pose, feel free to exit the Zoom. And thank you all very much for attending today's session. I hope that was helpful. Again, the most important thing that you want, oh, I didn't realize I turned my camera off. Let's turn that back on for you guys. The most important aspect that you guys need to remember in getting started with digital signatures is to take the time to go through the process. You're not going to come out of this session, again, being an expert in digital signatures or being any more confident really in loading up Authen Design and fumbling your way through a signing session. But at the very least, I've given you some steps that you may be able to recall as you're sitting in a signing session, wondering what to do next. And again, the best way to get started, open up your Authen Design account. When you're at your dashboard, click on the pen on the left-hand side and add a new signing session and just fumble your way through it. And if you still have questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm more than happy to help. It is my job to help you guys figure this kind of stuff out. So if I can be of service, please don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime. We do this, I think, every 2 or 3 months or so. So if you're still finding yourself struggling over the next 2 or 3 months, feel free to hop back onto the next dynamic agent session that I do on digital signatures. I look forward at some point to being able to do this in class again in the future so that I'm able to work with you on your computer and help you get through some of those steps. But if you need a one-on-one Zoom or anything like that, I'm more than happy to help you. You're welcome, Stephanie. Thanks for the great feedback. It's my pleasure. Good luck. And again, if you have no questions, feel free to exit the Zoom now, and we'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and good luck out there. Thanks very much, everybody.
Sandra, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What can I help you with?
Well, it's a hypothetical situation that I'm anticipating. I'm going to be listing, my client lives in Midland, Ontario, and we're going to list a property here in Toronto. And I'm going to try to strategize and get multiple offers. So if we get one with web forms and with the Authen Design, and then another offer with without that, just fax or email to me. What do I do? Do I download those 2 offers separately on my desktop and deal with them?
Absolutely. So regardless of what the buyer realtors have used to create their offers, whether they've used web forms or whether they've used pen on paper or whatever it is that they've done, typically 99.999% of the time, what you're going to receive in your is an email with a PDF attached to your email. If something is faxed to you by your branch, then your branch is going to send that to you in a PDF. They're not going to give you a piece of paper. I think anyway, if your branch is still giving you faxed pieces of paper instead of emailing them to you, let me know and I'll go into your branch and fix the processes. So 9 times out of 10, what you're going to receive in your email is a PDF file. So when you receive that PDF file, you'll be downloading it to your desktop of your email, and then using that process that we did when we created the signing session to, when we're adding documents, it's probably not going to let me click on this without adding somebody. Yeah, of course. Okay, thanks. Really forces you to go in order here. So what it's going to ask you to do when you choose what documents you want to send over by signature is you're going to upload a file. So you've got 2 PDFs that you've downloaded to your computer, depending on how organized you are. Like I've said here, I've created a folder on my desktop that's called 119 Fremont Place. And the 3 offers that I received on this listing, I've renamed the files and I've dropped them into this folder. So now you may want to include both of these. However, what I would recommend is that you email both PDFs to your sellers first, not through Authen Design, just forwarding them the emails that you've received or creating a new email and adding those PDFs, going through those offers with your sellers and then having them decide which offer they want to work with, so that you're only uploading one of those offers into a signing session, getting them to sign it. There's no point in putting 2 offers in a signing session when your sellers are only going to be signing 1, right?
Right, thank you.
So I know that that's really confusing. Again, you do need to go through the process a couple of times for it to really make sense. But once your sellers have decided which offer they're going to be working with, they will all be this PDF file for you, and you're just going to be uploading them in this process. When you get to this stage, add documents, upload a file, find out where you have stored that PDF when you downloaded it out of your email, and add it to the signing session this way.
Very good. Okay, I think I understand the overall.
Yeah, I know that that's incredibly confusing. It's hard to watch and be like, wait, what did you do? I totally understand. If you need help at the time and you're really struggling to figure out the easy way of doing this, feel free to engage me. And as long as I'm available, then I'd be happy to work through this with you in real time while you're preparing this for your sellers.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandra.
My pleasure. I'll put my email address here in the chat. Not that it's that difficult to find anyway. But feel free to email me. My phone is attached to my hand most times anyway, or again, I get it on my wrist. So if it's something urgent and I'm able to help, I'm more than happy to help at any time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Of course. Are there any other questions while I've got everybody here? Let's see who's left. Again, if there's no questions, feel free to leave the webinar. Or if you're just hanging around to see if there's anybody else that has a question that you can maybe learn from, that's okay too. I'll give it another minute or so. You can type it or you can unmute yourself, whichever you like. Okay, guys, if nothing else, I'll go ahead and close the webinar. Again, thank you very much for joining me today. It was my pleasure. It's been a while since I've done this one, so I'm glad I was able to come back and help you guys out. If I can ever be of service, please don't hesitate to email anytime, day or night, weekend or weekday. I am more than happy to help if I'm otherwise available to do so. Enjoy your Wednesday. Good luck with digital signatures, and I imagine I'll be seeing some of you again on our next digital signature session in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Sandra. Bye.
Thanks, George. Bye-bye.